Hello, Focus friends. In this episode, we're going to do a quick summary of a Dr. Andrew Huberman podcast with Drew Prowett. Now, there's a lot of content in this podcast, so today we're just going to focus on the part where they discuss the relationship between fear, motivation, and laziness. So, taking first fear and motivation, Huberman explains that they're not only closely related, but that they're also a part of the same chemical pathway in the brain. This pathway involves dopamine, the neurotransmitter known for its role in pleasure and motivation, and also epinephrine, which is more commonly referred to as adrenaline. The fact that there's a relationship between fear and motivation is of course clear when we consider the rush that we obtain when engaging in extreme sports or any extreme physical experience. Now, I'm not suggesting that to get motivated, we should don a flying wingsuit and jump off the office roof at lunchtime, but it is worth reflecting on how risk acts as a motivator, how the very phenomenology of a thrill, what we experience in our brain, is closely related to reward. So, how can we think about this in a way that's beneficial in a practical day-to-day sense? Well, firstly, we should probably seek to understand that the role played by dopamine is crucial for motivation, desire, and the pursuit of goals. Without sufficient dopamine, we lack motivation or the drive to pursue challenges or pleasures. This, Huberman notes, is illustrated by a famous experiment involving rats. The experiment showed that when their dopamine levels were depleted, they lacked all motivation. Where with normal levels, they would continually push a lever to dispense a food reward, they wouldn't move even the smallest distance to dispense the food when their dopamine levels were artificially suppressed. So we know that dopamine plays a crucial role in motivation. The next thing is to understand that fear and stress are closely tied to adrenaline, which is actually derived from dopamine. Huberman discusses how fear can manifest either through paralysis or as a motivator, depending on how it's channeled. He emphasizes the importance of using fear as a motivational tool rather than always viewing it as a negative emotion. Understanding this relationship, we can further underline how it's useful to focus on the craving aspect of dopamine to overcome laziness and a lack of motivation. By cultivating a sense of craving or desire, even in the presence of fear, one can activate the necessary neurochemicals to move forwards. This, I think, is a key point about the kind of neurohacks that Huberman is famed for. You see a common message throughout his videos, and it's that though we tend to want to think of the world in terms of narrative, with narrative meaning and significance, the evidence is that we can in fact gain motivation in ways that are meaningless in narrative terms. We can gain motivation through cultivating practices which produce a dopamine response. We are amenable to neurohacking. So to give an example, in mental narrative terms, in many movies, a father might lose his wife or a child, and he becomes motivated to seek revenge. Revenge then drives his action for the rest of the movie. So we don't consider the extent to which this is not, in reality, the only or even the main driver of motivation. In real life, most people who lose family members, even under ghastly circumstances to the mafia, aren't suddenly motivated to take revenge. It's only those who are able to generate a dopamine response who take action, who get off their asses and do. Now, I'm not suggesting that you should use dopamine to manufacture vigilantism. My point is that narrative drivers of action are much less a feature of real life than many believe. Huberman-style neurohacking is far more important than many appreciate. So Huberman's early morning sunlight hack, or his hack relating to following the science of doing difficult things, like taking a cold shower or bath, these are far more powerful and effective than we've led ourselves to believe. There is a real physical chemical balance, and we can take, I want to call it, a non-narrative action to help control it and engineer the outcomes that we want to see. Here, the lessons from extreme sports aren't irrelevant. They surely illustrate the direct link between attraction, dare I say, thrill-seeking addiction, and motivation. The thrill we first experience when doing extreme activities can later become sought after. Now again, I'm not here suggesting thrill-seeking is the answer to office productivity, but at a practical level, we can harness fear and challenge as something to be overcome. These emotions are central to the neurological pathways in our brain, and we can utilize the energy and buzz that they provide as drivers. We can utilize this energy like mental clay so that motivation becomes a self-feeding thing. It's like this. There is such a thing as healthy stress. There is such a thing as a dynamic office, delivery buzz, energy and fear. Fear of failure, fear of not being able to cover the bills is a part of the mix. It's a necessary aspect of what makes a challenge and what makes overcoming challenges mean what it means. It's an indelible part of the picture, much like a plane has vertices or a coin has two sides. Huberman and Proet go on to highlight the differences between undirected, paralysing fear and directed, motivating fear. They reflect on how directed fear, such as setting specific goals or challenges, can be a productive force. The secret is to get dopamine as a motivator, to overcome the fear, balance it out, so proportionately it's not so large as to repel. I would like to say it's like we're able to squeeze past the repelling end of a magnet, and as we squeeze past, what was initially pushing us back propels us forwards, and doing this and learning that we can do it becomes a part of our knowledge base. So we develop faith in the energy, excitement and the frisson or buzz that we can engineer. On my interpretation, one of the main messages that Huberman is trying to relate is that this isn't some hidden key or sophisticated formula. In an important sense, our brain chemicals are quite unsophisticated. We can take effective steps to cultivate dopamine. We can engineer it through challenging ourselves. And when we do it right, we will find energy and we'll find motivation. The objective associated with today's video relates to visualization. In your morning settings, try switching on the Visualize Success option. Now, when utilizing this option, understand that the important thing is not to have a vision of a successful end goal, but instead to incorporate into your vision how you can integrate challenges and fears to be overcome and the drivers on your journey to success. Ironically, visualizing a successful end state only can be akin to placing a repelling magnet at the end of your path, such that there's a gap between where we are now and where we want to get to. And there's research that actually backs this up. Far more important is to visualize overcoming the challenges we face on our journey towards success. So think about how you can utilize bite-sized chunks of fear to push past challenges, gain self-induced dopamine response and generate energy. Like the stator of an electric motor, this can power us to success. Now, there's a lot more to this technique, and we'll be returning to it in the future, and we'll discuss it in a lot more detail in future videos. I look forward to it. Simple Focus provides a quick-to-use self-improvement checklist. See your progress at a glance. Acquire the habit of self-improvement daily, with a morning checklist, objective of the day, and an evening review. View and prioritize objectives for the positive habits you'd like to form. Great video content appears daily in the magazine, and when you see something you like, add it to your objectives.